Okay, so the scenario I have here is on the contact record, I want my sales team or my service team, when interacting with this contact, to know if it is the birthday of the contact. That way they can kind of personalize the experience for the contact. So we've got a contact here, and I want to put a banner up at the top of this contact record page to let either those salespeople or service people know that it is Miss Gray's birthday. So we're going to leverage a couple things. We're going to create a custom field so that way we know if today is her birthday. And then we're also going to create that banner on the page layout with some rich text. So let's take a look here. We've got a birth date for Miss Gray of July 4th, 1985. So we need a checkbox to say, is today's date the same as the birth date for the record? So let's go ahead and create that checkbox. I'm on the contact page. Let's navigate to our setup menu and then go ahead and edit the object that we have. Click into our fields and we'll go ahead and create a new field. And in this case, even though it's a checkbox field, we want it to be a formula field so that way it is automatically checked if it meets the criteria. So I'm going to click formula and then I'm going to give it a name. Go ahead, contact's birth date. All right, and we want it to be a checkbox field to be marked true or yes if it is meeting that criteria, or blank if it's false. All right, so let's go ahead and create a simple formula here, and we want is today's contact birth date checkbox equal. So we want it to be true if it meets this criteria. So let's go ahead and say if today, meaning the date that the record is being pulled. In this case, it's July 4th, 2025. So it would pull that value, but let's say it's September 3rd as the date. It would go ahead and use September 3rd and compare it to our birth date field. So let's go ahead and insert that field here on our contact record as the birth date. We'll check our syntax. Looks like everything compiles. We're going to go ahead and leave the description and help text blank. And then we're also going to determine down here how we want to handle it. In this case, we can just say we want to treat the blank fields as blank. We'll click next. And normally we would want this field to be hidden since some automation in the back end is going to be referencing it. And it's going to drive that rich text field on the page layout. Our salespeople don't really need, or our service team doesn't really need to see the actual checkbox field. But for the sake of this demonstration and just to make sure everything's working properly, we'll go ahead and mark that as visible for now for all profiles. And we'll also make sure that we add it to all page layouts. Okay, cool. Let's go back to Miss Gray and we'll refresh the page here. Now we're probably going to run into some caching issues here with this not loading, so let's kind of trick it a little bit. And we'll go ahead and switch to a compact view and see if we've got that checkbox. Cool, we do. Now there's a little bit of a problem. We would expect this to be coming back as true because Miss Gray's birth date is July 4th, 1985, and today's the contact birth date. Today is July 4th. What's going on here? Well, if we take a look back at our formula field, let's go ahead and click back into it. We can see it is comparing, is the value of today the same as the birth date? Now, when Salesforce is looking at this, it's comparing the month, the day, and then the problem we're running into here is it's also comparing the year. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. And we can see it marks as true. So unless she was born on the exact month, date, and year, this formula isn't really going to work. So let's go ahead and make some changes real quick. First thing we'll do is we'll return that birth date to the original value. And let's make a change to our formula field here. So we're going to compare a couple things here, and they all need to be true. So we're going to go ahead and start by inserting a function here. That's going to be our AND function. So we're going to make sure that all the logic that we are putting in place must equal true. If one of them equals false, the whole formula is going to be false. So let's go ahead and try our first one here with our and let's go ahead and clear this out a little bit, give us some space. And the first thing we're going to compare is the month. So let's go ahead and look at our functions, find the month function, and we're going to say our first value is going to be the value of today. So we're going to take the month of today, and we're going to see if it's equal to the month of our birth date field. I'm not the best at remembering the exact API name, so let's go ahead and just clean that up by inserting it there. Cool. All right, so we've got our first one down. Now, since there are multiple things, we need to put a comma in there so it knows to check for the next value. So let's go ahead and insert another date and time function, and this time instead of the month, we want the day. So let's go ahead and click enter there. We want the day value of today. So in our example that we're doing, it is going to be July 4th, or excuse me, the 4th for the day. And we'll go ahead and make sure that equals the day value of the birthday field. And we'll clean up our extra commas here. All right, we should be good to go. So let's check our syntax. And it looks like we have a small error. So let's see if we can pinpoint down where that error is. I think it might be, let's try that. Cool. And let's talk through one more time what's happening here. So we have a AND function, meaning that it is looking at all of the conditions that we've listed to check if they're true. So our first one here is month. Is the month, in this case, July 4th, so we're looking at the 7 value for today, the same as the month of the birthday field. And Miss Gray's birthday is July 4th, so that's going to match for the month. Since that marked as true, it's going to move on to our second one down here. And it's going to look at the day value, and it's going to say, for today's day value, is that the same as the day value in the birthday field? Miss Gray's is the 4th of July, so those two are going to mark as true. So let's go ahead and save this formula here and come back and refresh our page. Now, if everything works as intended, you can see here that we now have checkbox since today, July 7, matches the 7 for the birth date, and then the 4th of July matches the 4 for the day field. So first part's done. Let's go ahead and edit the page layout next, so that way we can have some rich text pop up and let our sales or service persons know that it is the contact's birth date, and they don't have to look for the small checkbox field. So we'll go ahead, click our gear icon to edit the page. All right, we're on our page. Let's go ahead and look for a page component. And in this case, let's drag a rich text box out here to the top. And let's kind of pretty this up a little bit. I'm always a fan of some good emojis, so let's add in some birthday emojis here. All right, we can add in our text, add in another, and we can give them a little call to action here. Maybe if we can type. All right, so we've got our rich text, what that's going to look like. Let's clean it up, center it a little bit, and maybe make it a more festive color. All right, and we'll add a little bold. Okay, so we've got this rich text component showing up on the contact page. The last thing we need to do is set some conditional visibility criteria. We don't want this appearing every single day. That kind of defeats the purpose. So let's go ahead and add a filter here. And we are going to look for a record field value. And it's going to be, is today the contact's birthday? And we want it to show if it's true. All right. So we added a rich text component here. We added some text to let our employees know how they should handle this. And we added some component visibility criteria to make sure it displays. All right, we'll activate our page layout here. And let's navigate back to the page. Take a look and see if we refresh, if we can get that component to show. Now again, we might run into some caching issues here, so let's kind of trick it, see what we can figure out. Now it looks like we're running into a tiny bit of an issue. Let's hop back into our page layout and see if we can dissect what's going on here. And it looks like the issue is, for whatever reason, that rich text component didn't display. So let's, or save, I should say. Let's go ahead and add it back again. All right. Again, we can't forget those emojis. So let's go ahead and add in a birthday cake. Cool. And we'll make it a fun color again. All right, let's click save and see if we can get it to activate this time. All right, looks like it wasn't assigned as the org default, so we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll click save. Let's go back to our contact here. And there we go. Looks like it is now working now that we actually saved it. We've got that rich text appearing because we have got that checkbox value as true. If somebody was to go in here and update Miss Gray's birthday, let's say they accidentally put in a day late, you can see that our rich text component, once our page refreshes, will go ahead and show false. And this is that classic Salesforce dilemma where it has cached our page values. And I think the other bug that we might have just figured out is that this has no filter criteria. So let's go ahead and add that filter criteria back in. Is today's the contact's birthday, the value equals true. Now let's save it. All right, we should be cooking now. We refresh our page. Perfect. That went ahead and disappeared. We update Miss Gray's birthday to July 4th. Cool. It's working for us. So what we did is we leveraged the birth date field on the contact record. We created a custom formula Boolean field to evaluate if the month and day of the birth date field match the today value, which is the system date that is currently on the end user side. And then if those two values mark as true, it's going to mark a checkbox. Then we are using that checkbox value to go ahead and generate a rich text banner that comes up on the top of the page, gives our employees a little call to action and a little additional information on how they can better provide excellent service to this contact. So hope you found this helpful, leveraging some rich text and some filter criteria to display that information.